Hi, it's Anna, Haystack Gardens, and today I'm going to show you a hand milking video. Just sharing kind of the things that I have learned. I never really watched YouTube videos in order to learn how to milk a cow. I had a mentor that I learned from, but I recognize that a lot of things people learn through YouTube videos, so I figured I would just make one up myself and share the things that I've learned. But I do not, I don't think I'm an expert. The other thing is, you get to know your own cow. So every cow is different. Keep in mind that you may learn some things from other people about milking a cow, but then you get your own and you find out you have to tweak some things for your own situation. So I'm just wiping her down right now with a warm soapy cloth, and then I have my milk pail, stainless steel. It's clean obviously, and she's still kind of getting situated here, so I'm going to try to see if I can get her to stand in one spot and maybe open her legs just a tad bit before I get started. Come on, girl. Thank you. Okay, that's a little bit too far. I didn't know she's going to step forward. She's still having her grain. We'd really like to get her off of grain, but this is how she came to it. So right away, when you first start, you're going to have a lot of milk coming out at once. And what you want to do is get to the point where you're milking as much as possible with a full hand. And you have to make sure when you're hand milking that you, she's going to step now, see? Okay. You want to start to notice the weight shift of a cow before you knock over your whole milk pail. Oh, what's happening over here? I'm missing the pail. So you're going to try to make sure that you're evenly milking out all the teats. And sometimes it's going to be easier to not do a full hand. So you have to do a lot of multitasking. Hey girl, can you move your leg? Thank you. You still see? I think it's still in view. So sometimes I'm doing the stripping and sometimes I'm doing a full hand, back and forth, on all the teats. Although I will say that I've learned a different way with her, because one of her teats got stepped on a couple years back, and so it's not as, it doesn't produce as much, and it's a lot harder to get milk out, so you have to squeeze the bag and then strip. So squeeze, strip, squeeze, strip. But it's a lot easier to get a lot of the first flowing milk, and you want to get as much of that out as possible, because as soon as you start milking the cow, as soon as the letdown comes, you're going to get the most milk, and after it kind of starts a time clock, and as soon as the time is up, the milk stops. So don't worry as a beginner that you're not going to get all the milk out. It takes some time to build up the hand muscles to do hand milking. We got her, now it's been 2 or 3 weeks, and I've been milking her in the morning and the evening, and I still feel hand cramps, because I haven't been milking a cow in about 6 months. So it takes some time to build up the hand strength. And when we first got a cow, I actually learned from the first person we bought a cow from. She came, Jill, and taught me a lot about how to milk a cow. And we only had that cow actually for 6 weeks before we sold her back, because our situation wasn't quite right. And so in that first 6-week period, I think it probably took me at least 2 to 3 weeks to really feel comfortable with hand milking. So just be patient with yourself. Hopefully you have a cow that can teach you how to hand milk. That is the blessing of a good family milk cow that will stand for you that has good hand milkable teats. You want to look for that if that's something that you know is going to be important to you and your family. And just recognize too, as it gets a little bit lower down, there's still quite a good stream. I think what's happening is last night I tried using a borrowed milking machine to see how it did with her and how she did with it, because she's only been machine milked every once in a while. I think the last time was probably about 2 years ago. She was really spooked by it. She only gave a half gallon, but she normally gives at least a gallon per milking. So that was interesting to see that the hand milking is actually going really well. I was wanting to see, can I get more milk from her with a machine that can technically take it out faster than I could with hand milking. So it's not always a given that machine milking is going to be faster, especially if you only have one cow. So you can bear that in mind. I think it's about even in terms of time spent, because you have all the cleaning of the equipment when you have the machine. You see how I'm going back and forth between stripping and then full hand? Because I don't get as much with the stripping, and it goes faster when you can use a full hand. And I need to remember this fourth teat, even though I don't really want to do it. If you don't milk out all teats, you can run into troubles with your cow. And it's still coming up pretty nicely. So yeah, anyway, last night I milked out only a half gallon, so it could be that she's going to give a lot more. One other trick that I learned recently from this cow that I hadn't ever done with any other cow is when it gets lower, so I'm going to start squeezing the bag before I do a full hand. Or, so I was starting to do this, but then realized I wasn't really getting all of the milk that I wanted to. She was starting to bring the milk up into her udder before I could get the rest of the milk. So one other trick I learned is just grabbing and then doing that. And then I was able to get a lot more. The other thing is you might want to look at the angle at which you're squeezing the bag before you do the stripping, because what I was doing is just one angle, but then she's got this teat back here that instead of grabbing like this, I just turned my hand a little bit and a bunch more milk came out. So I was able to get a ton of milk right at the end when I thought that there was no more. I have a feeling we're going to need to dump this. And I'll show you my setup too for milking. You want to make sure to have a place, you don't have to do this out when you're milking, but I prefer to have a place where I can filter the milk right away. We use this stainless steel filter from Homesteading Supply that has this filter. It gets tight in there, so you don't have a lot of you don't have to have a lot of hairs obviously going into the milk. So then you just pour it in and it filters it right there. I will say I'm still messing around with it. I'm wondering if there's something wrong with our filter. I'm going to show that well enough. So there it goes, filtering. Because when I first started doing this, maybe I wasn't pushing the filter down well enough, and I was still getting some specks of dirt, and I was kind of surprised by that. Thank you, girl. You're just stepping right in the right spot for me. I have to say, I have really enjoyed having Pippi as a milk cow, and the family that we got her from did a lot of work with her to make her gentle. And if you have to do that work, it is work. It is going to take a lot of your time to make your cow be gentle. And of course you can milk cows that are not gentle, but you have to have the facilities for it. And a lot of homesteaders don't have that, like us. And it's important to us that our cows be gentle because we have children. And I don't really want to get stepped on by a cow either. I was going to say too about the filter, that you can get a larger filter, but I would recommend that wide mouth filter because it goes straight into a bottle. When we first did this, we didn't know that, and we got the one that was larger, and maybe there's a better system that somebody else has, but we were just pouring it into a bowl and then just had an extra step because it was so wide that it didn't fit into any of our jars, of course. So her milk supply is starting to lessen here. This teat is still really full, but you gotta keep trying all the teats and catch them before they dry up. This is kind of a nice test for me too, to see how long does it take me to milk her, because I haven't tested this yet. "10 minutes is a good amount of time, but you might not get there for a while because this is already past 10 minutes. My guess is it takes me about 20 minutes to milk the cow, and then at the end you're going to want to put on some bag balm, something that covers her teats so that she doesn't get cracked, and that could be really painful for your cow and really hard to milk her because you don't want pain with milking. You can buy it at the store. I ended up finding a recipe for our own homemade one from Prairie Homestead, and it didn't quite turn out the way I would have expected it to. I think I must have done something wrong, but it still works. It gets the important oils on the teats so that they don't crack in the wintertime. I was going to talk a little bit too about your setup. What we have is a head gate, a little wooden stanchion that we built back 3 years ago when we got our first milk cow. And this is now the 4th cow that I've hand milked on a regular basis, kind of. I've milked her more than I milked the last 2 that we milked, but this head gate is set up right in our barn, and she's currently in the barn separated from our other cows because we still are waiting back for disease testing. So you can do disease testing just to know for yourself what the situation is with her health. And we should be getting that back any day from the lab. So she just walks right into the stanchion, and then I put up a wooden slab to close it off, and she just stands here past her milking. Not past her milking, but past when she's finished with her grain. She just kind of stands here. When it's been really windy, she doesn't really like it and tries to get away from it, but we just bring her food and water here, and we remove her manure every time we come so that her area stays clean. Also, you want to make sure that your milk cow is getting good mineral. And there's a lot of different ideas about what you should be feeding your cow. I do not call myself an expert in that, but I can tell you what we do. We currently have some concept aid out, which is supposed to help with breeding back. We're going to be taking her to the breeders here next week. And we have a salt block and also a, what is that called? It's another mineral. I'd like to put out some kelp meal as well, and I haven't done that yet because time. But when we get her out with all the rest of the cows, we have a free choice mineral feeder that all of our animals use. Our sheep, our goats, and our cows are all together using that, at least right now in the winter while breeding is happening. And so they choose the minerals that they need, and when they're deficient in some mineral, because they're not getting it from your pasture, they will take the mineral in that they need, and then they poop it out in your pasture. Isn't that amazing? Then you eventually, over time, the thought is that your pasture is less deficient in the things that it once was deficient in, and your cows are helping you improve your land that way, or any other ruminants that you're feeding. So we got that from, I think it's called Free Choice Enterprises, and it just moves along with the animals. So you do have to have a way to move it, like a four-wheeler or UTV or something. You don't really want to do it by hand because it's pretty heavy. You can build your own. I know Justin Rhodes has some instructions on how to build your own. We ended up just buying our own because we didn't know that he had instructions on building it, but we did talk about doing that, and we might build a second one at some point, because the thing is, we don't always just have one group of animals. We have rams that stay separated from our ewes for other parts of the year when we don't want them being bred. And so we do want all of our animals to have that good nutrition and mineral. So for instances like this, when you have a cow that's separated from the rest of the group, you just do your best and you get some other minerals that she can have at all times, because it's important for your cow to be healthy, because you're going to be drinking her milk. Okay, I have a feeling we're almost